What to do, YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review Hollywood Undead's second album, American Tragedy. Now, they were their first album, Swan Songs, was promoted quite heavily. It was a big MySpace smash, and it lasted throughout the internet and kind of meme rap for a while between like mid 2008 and like early 2010. They had some EPs that were dropped in conjunction with it that were like spares and leftovers of that album, and they were just an overall good pick for recent, at least early 2010s rock rap and that type stuff. Just kind of slightly bringing back a new metal and rock rap kind of sound that had been gone since the early 2000s. And one person that they kind of had drama with was Deuce, who was their original hook artist and was a part of the group, but he got kicked out after the Desperate Measures album from 2009, which was kind of a stopgap between Swan Songs and this album. But in early 2010, after the complete promotion for Swan Songs wrapped up, they decided to start. They got a new hook artist whose name is Danny, and it's like Danny Mario or something like that. But Danny is the new hook artist for American Tragedy, and he does pretty decent. And I'm gonna have to say he has I don't feel like Danny's hooks are complete for the most part, full blown as accurate as Deuce's, but he does have a good few boilers on here and a good several of those. And he has like a different sound. I'm going to kind of talk about that. I guess I can talk about that a little bit now, just to kind of say, like, the thing about this album is it's kind of electronic rock. It really specializes in club songs for rock music with a kind of electro kind of sound to it, electro pop. And I want to say that Danny was a part of American Idol, and he dropped out of American Idol to join the band and that type stuff. So he kind of provided them with an instant kind of, hey, we're not just alternative now, we're not just internet rap, but actually trying to get to like the rock charts and that type stuff. I mean, Swan Songs did also, but this kind of has like a more pop kind of, almost aiming for commercial, where they kind of seemingly kind of somewhat ditch their alternative kind of sound. And it kind of goes with that. There were 7 singles off this project. That's a lot. That's way more. Well, I want to say that Swan Songs had like 5, maybe 6, but this album outdid it and had a lot of promotion. Even though there was an abundance of songs from this project that charted, there was some quality on here in terms of singles, and it basically was a pretty valiant follow-up to Swan Songs in a lot of ways. It just has a different execution. Not quite a song, there's not a song quite as furious as Undead, but I do feel like Hear Me Now kind of replicates the song Young, and songs like Black Dahlia are not really on here, and Everywhere I Go, but there are differential angles that kind of show up, and Danny gets some really good commercial time to showcase that he's a pretty solid hook artist. I mean, I said that he doesn't match Deuce, but Deuce is up there with like Nate Dogg and Bruno Mars, but I do say Danny Boy, the fact that he was on American Idol and what he would have been if he had stuck with that program kind of showcases that he probably would have been a pretty decent pop artist on his own. But with him being this electro pop rock type stuff, he does a pretty solid job, and he's a valiant hook artist for this. So, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about the singles. So the first single was Hear Me Now, which to me kind of feels like a rap mixtape song. This is one that's kind of strictly rap. It's not really trying to be rock oriented that much. This is something that I felt like had a lot of similarities to Young off of Swan Songs. This really feels like a kind of hustle song, got to get up and get it, got to get on the grind type stuff, and really march forth and that type stuff. And it's a pretty solid kind of motivating song. I do give that song credit for that. And I mean, the hook by Danny is not quite as good as some of the other singles that we're going to talk about, but it's decent. I mean, it just kind of has like this wail to it that's just kind of more wave your lighters in the sky type feeling towards it. It's not quite as furious and not quite as like addictive and earworm-esque, but it is a pretty solid, I do like this song, and it's a pretty solid like hustle song in a lot of ways. It just reminds me of a rap mixtape song, something that you'd hear from Meek Mill, or like one of those mixtape cats that were around back in 2011 and 2012 and such. That's kind of the concept. Been to Hell is the second single, and this is a rock rap kind of song. This one kind of has some of the new metal tinge to it. It's kind of similar to Undead, but just not quite as furious, not quite as up tempo and in your face. It's kind of like a mid tempo kind of rock beat on there, and can kind of be played in clubs, I think somewhat, but maybe more so in your car and in like a rock radio station type. This is the song I think rock radio would probably pick up as Been to Hell. It's pretty decent. If Hear Me Now is the more rap song, Been to Hell is the more rock one, and it does a solid job on there. Danny completely knocks out the hook. I would say this is probably Danny's best hook on the whole album. He just, when he gets to screaming, I can show you the devil and that type of stuff, that's just extremely good. Danny just nailed this hook. That was like, that's easily like A-list hook right there in that sort of sense. That was an excellent one. Coming Back Down was the third single. And this is kind of like Hollywood Undead's take on like the B.O.B. sound that he kind of created with songs like Airplanes and then Nothing on You, the kind of introspective, kind of backpacker, mild backpacker, and kind of makeshift kind of song that you probably heard on MySpace back in 2010 and 2009, stuff that maybe Justin Bieber and Rihanna would have done, also that type MySpace type feel in B.O.B. I feel like it's pretty good. I mean, it's a real mellow song, definitely not up tempo, definitely not a club song. I bet you could almost hear this song at a job, depending upon the angle of it, but it's pretty. I feel like this is not commercial enough to break through. I just felt like the hook wasn't quite up to snuff on there. I mean, it's good, but it's not. I don't think this is going to be like a Lil Wayne How to Love, where it's kind of a surprise hit makeshift song out of nowhere. They were trying. They were at least trying to say, hey, we do some blue collar stuff, but it felt just a little bit low key, not quite as poised to do it. I would have liked to have seen what Deuce would have done with this if he would have done a hook for this song, but it's good. It's a good song, but it's just not the commercial smash that they might have been trying to do. So it's decent, pretty solid. Um, Coming Hot is kind of that's the fourth single, Coming in Hot. It's electronic rock kind of song. This kind of brings back some of the rap in there, and it's a pretty decent club song. This is definitely one I think you could hear on a weekend, Friday night type stuff. This is something for going out and kind of getting crunk and that type stuff. I really feel like yeah, Danny did this hook also, and this is another really good one. I mean, Danny nailed like several hooks at the beginning of the album with songs like Apologize, Hear Me, or Apologize, Been to Hell, and Coming in Hot. I mean, some of those ones that you hear at the very beginning are Danny's best hooks. This is another A-list hook from Danny. Really kicks ass. Just a nice electronic rock club song. Electronic rock is not something that's too common all the time, but it's kind of different from, I mean, these songs, as you'll notice, are different from Swan songs where it kind of had like a rock rap tinge to it, but it was kind of more rap oriented for the most part. It wasn't full blown rock, but it had some rap in there. But these are like electronic and more pop electronic type stuff, and Coming in Hot does a good job with that. Um, My Town is the fifth single. Yeah, My Town is another kind of, this one's kind of more rock oriented. So you got two rap singles, two rock singles. I feel like My Town would be the follow up to Bend to Hell as far as what could have been on the rock charts. It's kind of electronic in there a little bit in the verses, but this is another pretty solid hook from Danny in there. And just represents the town and that type of stuff. Just kind of a kind of cruising out, kind of repping type song. I do appreciate that. They have a pretty good song palette. Some of the stuff like a makeshift song, a club song, a rock song, a mixtape kind of hustle song. So they've had some good singles, nice palette of things to kind of go by. This is a rock oriented one that works really well. So I basically liked all the singles. There's only one single out of the 7 I didn't enjoy, but My Town is another real solid one. It's another, if it's not A-list hook from Danny, it's basically B-list. These are just I mean, it just you have to understand that it doesn't have the alternative flair of Deuce. It's not quite as like emo like and kind of like alternative and kind of in that sense, but it does have like a pop kind of rock. It's a rock tinged one where it could be on the rock charts, but it just has a lot of commercial pop feel towards it. And that's just kind of the concept about it, where it's just not quite as alternative. It's more mainstream in a lot of ways, but Bullet is the 6th single. This is the only single I didn't like off the album, and I really couldn't get into like what they were trying to do with this song. I really felt like it just, I don't know what direction they were trying to head, but it didn't really feel like much of a song. It just did not have the gravity of the other singles, and was kind of odd as far as like the direction that they were trying to go with it. It just felt like maybe a little bit too pop, like a worse version of Coming Back Down or something like that. It just really was not synchronized the way it needed to be. But the seventh single is Levitate, and this is another rock based single. This is one that kind of has like an edgy kind of electro rock. Yeah, Levitate, this is a nice one. This is a nice mellow kind of rock song. This easy kind of, I mean, their rock songs are pretty solid. I definitely have to say that they, you would think that because they kind of started off as more rap tinted, kind of more heavy on the rap side of rock than the rock side of rap. But this time around, it's more rock oriented rap. And that's just kind of the concept about Levitate. It's just an easygoing kind of rock rap song. Nice mid tempo kind of mellow song, and another great hook from Danny on here. I mean, he basically knocked out all the singles in terms of the hooks minus Hear Me Now. I feel like that was the only one that was not A list. But I do feel like this is a nice rock rap song, and if you're looking for something rock related, but you're not looking for like a singer and kind of like Metallica or AC/DC type stuff, this is a pretty, contemporary and contemporary rock type stuff to really mess with. I'd say this is definitely, some of these songs are stuff that you could have heard on rock radio in a lighter sense, or at least kind of a secondary rock radio if you're tired of like Imagine Dragons and stuff like that, those kind of ones that were popular early 2012, mid 2011, that type stuff. So there's just some good stuff there. And all of the singles minus one was pretty good. This is to kind of talk about some of this. There are some other songs. I'll go ahead and list the songs for you that I recommend. So out of 14, I wound up liking 9, and these are the songs I recommend to you. So it'd be Been to Hell, Apologize, Coming in Hot, My Town, Hear Me Now, Lights Out, Coming Back Down, Levitate, and Tendencies. Now, out of all the 6 of those are songs that were singles, and the other 3 songs were Apologize, Lights Out, and Tendencies. Now, Tendencies is another rock-based type song. It's kind of similar, very similar to Been to Hell. Same kind of approach almost. It's not, I mean, I was surprised that they didn't really do any headbanging songs on here, but Been to Hell is probably like the wildest rock moment on here, but Tendencies is pretty close. That's another one that kind of comes to that. It's a nice, solid rendition. And then I would also have to say that Apologize is another electronic rock kind of song, kind of similar to Coming in Hot and a little bit of My Town. They just really nailed some of these, and this is another great hook from Danny. This is another one that really is knocked out of the park. This, we don't apologize. He gets that sort of stuff going on. And easy kind of club song for just going out. And this, I mean, this does have a pretty vivid sense of stepping out. They're not squares, they're not posers, they're folks that are active and have a pretty good time and go out and that type stuff. And it's encouraging to be able to do that, just because it's kind of like, it's just a different album from Swan Songs. That's kind of the concept about it, where it's a lot more rock related, but then it's kind of a mixture. The rock rap with the more rap oriented songs are, in some cases, they don't have like the rock oriented feel. They just kind of this time went with an electronic rock feel that's more commercial and less alternative, like Deuce was. But these songs are still good. It's just a different album. Like, I have to say that Swan Songs and American Tragedy are 2 different albums, where Swan Songs is the more alternative rock and kind of rap oriented alternative, but American Tragedy is a lot more, it's club oriented also and outgoing, but it's just a more electronic rock, commercial, almost pop electronic type albums. That's just kind of the concept there. That's the flavor that Danny and the rest of them kind of bring this time around. But oh yeah, an almost song. So there was like a 9th or a 10th song. So yeah, an almost song was Gangsta Sexy, which I didn't really like the hook on this song. This was an example of a song that didn't have too well of a hook. I just felt like the way it was kind of composed was, it just felt kind of like lousy compared to some of the other ones. I mean, the energy of like Been to Hell and Apologize and Coming in Hot, this one was just kind of like trying to be a little bit maybe sultry somewhat, but didn't quite pull it off as well. So I kind of felt like, I mean, I did like the beat on this song, and I did like the rappers on the verses when they were doing the song, but it's kind of an almost song for me. It's kind of on the fence. But so yeah, me liking 9.5 out of 14. I'm gonna go ahead and give this album like an 8.5 out of 10 because I really feel like just a couple more and it probably would have been a 10. This is a pretty exceptional project. I don't remember what I scored Swan Songs all those years ago, but I do feel like they're both pretty solid. So, this is 2 for 2 for Hollywood Undead in terms of not just their singles, but also in terms of like quality albums. And I would probably throw in Desperate Measures, the last album that had Deuce on there too, is like another one. But the thing about these guys, I just don't know why they're so cast to the wayside. Like they truly are like pretty megaton, but they still pale in comparison to like the AC/DCs, the Metallicas, the Rob Zombies, and like the Deftones and those type bands. I mean, they're like a compatible, but I would almost feel like they're like a B minus list rock band. Like they never quite managed to become like an A list rock band. And then in terms of rap, they're so far off to the wayside that they're just seldom ever talked about on the rap side of things. So it's just kind of, I definitely recommend them if you're looking for like an extra burst of like electronic rock and that type of stuff that's kind of alternative but not as alternative as Swan Songs, but enough to kind of say that this is a good choice for folks that still like rock rap and kind of want to indulge in rock music with a little bit of rap in there, and that's not exactly hugely commercial and that type of stuff. But Danny definitely tries to be commercial, so you can understand if you are looking for that commercial type feel of it and you want something mainstream somewhat, Danny's kind of your pick. But it just doesn't have anything that really breaks the mold. Like the closest two songs I'd say that break the mold on here would be Hear Me Now and Bend to Hell, which neither of which really get close to like being number one rock songs or something like that. Maybe Bend to Hell did do that, but I don't know. It's just that's kind of the concept. So they're just, they're underground rock, which is pretty solid. So 8.5 out of 10. The social score, I'm going to give a 10 out of 10, just because that many quality singles, 6 of them, and I think they did a handful of music videos also, so they've got some good stuff on here. Me only disliking one single out of 7 is pretty damn solid. I mean, they really promoted the hell out of this project, and it's worthwhile just because Danny really delivers some pretty solid hooks, some really kick-ass hooks that puts him on par, not quite with Deuce, but makes him a pretty rock-solid hook artist and gives the band a new edge and flavor that they needed. This is kind of the concept. So social score is a 10. Can this record be topped? Possibly somewhat, but not really. It's pretty damn exceptional. And then on top of that, in terms of the future, like Hollywood Undead just dropped a new album back in August of 2022. So there is some new stuff to kind of check out. They're basically rock only. They've kind of somewhat abandoned their rap tinge, but they are a pretty solid rock band nowadays. They're just mostly a rock band now, but just to kind of say, like in their earlier days, like these two albums, Swan Songs, American Tragedy, they were rap based. But I just wonder, it's been a while since I've listened to them. That's the concept with them.